So hello, let's get started. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Understanding Freedom of Speech at and Hate at TU. So let's start with the objectives for today. Okay, so today's objectives, we want to define and distinguish between the difference of hate crimes, freedom of speech / expression, and bias incidents. We also want to examine the current trends for hate crimes and bias incidents that transpire on the different campuses and universities that we tend to see. I want to provide you all with examples of hate crimes and bias incidents. Then we want to look at how, those incidents can impact victims. And then we want to discuss our thoughts on accountability for hate speech and bias incidents, reflect on how to best support students at TU, and then review our policies on hate crimes, freedom of expression, and bias incidents. So let's just go over the logistics first. Discrimination. So under the law, discrimination is unequal or unfair treatment of a person based upon some personal characteristic or groups. Types may include age, disability, harassment, national origin, pregnancy, retaliation, age, sex, or sexual harassment. That's just to name a few. Here at TU, we also do housing. So if someone is homeless, we consider that a protective class as well. Because Towson is a state entity, we also look at both Title VI and Title VII for employment for faculty and staff. Again, we talked about what are protected classes under the discrimination laws: race, color, religion, creed, national origin, sex, age, physical or mental disability, veteran status, citizenship. Like I said, here at TU, we also honor homelessness as well as a protected class. Hate crimes. So let's talk about what hate crimes are. People tend to get those a little confused with freedom of speech or bias incidents. So hate crimes are crimes committed against a person or their property, which is motivated, at least in part, by the offender's bias towards actual or perceived group's membership. Criminal offense defined by the state of Maryland, and usually you'll report those to the TUPD. Bias incidents. Usually bias incidents are verbal, written, or physical behaviors, which are not criminal offenses, but they usually are targeted with the unconscious or consciously towards a person because of their actual or perceived identity or group membership. As a public institution, like I stated before, that's what Towson is. The university must consider free speech, but be mindful of what that speech look like. While the expression of free speech is a great idea and a point of view, the point of view may be hateful, offensive, or inflammatory towards people and could cause bias-related incidents. So remember this, the importance of impact versus intent, which we will get further into about bias incidents and how your verbal actions or your written actions or just your behaviors in general can cause someone to feel uncomfortable, even if it's not a bias incident. So a disclaimer, while TU values the freedom of expression and open exchange of ideas, we respond to reports of harassment or expression of bias that may violate our policies. Whether we evaluate and investigate certain incidents is fact specific and determined by case basis. Again, keep in mind that there's a difference between freedom of expression and freedom of consequences. Although one is protected by the US government under the Constitution, the other is not. And it's important to remember that TU supports all members of our community. On one hand, TU values freedom of expression and open exchange idea, but on the other hand, TU does not protect harassment or expression of bias that violates our policies. We will continue to investigate, report incidents accordingly, like it stated before. Despite that we have, classes that are virtually, please keep in mind that online and social media can still be considered a bias incident on our campus university. So let's talk about what is freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is a term used by institutions to refer to the ability of an individual or group of individuals to express their beliefs, thoughts, ideas, emotions. Under the First Amendment of the Constitution, it protects individuals' rights to the freedom of religion, speech, press, petition, and assembly. And again, here at TU, we value the freedom of expression and the idea of open exchange. The freedom of exchange of ideas and information is central to higher education's foremost obligation of fostering both intellectual development and the discovery of knowledge. But again, as TU being a public institution, our endeavors are to protect each student's free speech rights and may not limit speech of expression, however offensive or disagreeable, based solely on the content of views being expressed. So what hate speech is protected? Let's go into that. Speech that is intended to insult or offend a person because of their actual or perceived identity of group or membership. Hate speech itself does not constitute a hate crime. As a public institution, we must be mindful of protecting freedom of speech and other civil liberties. Generally speaking, the First Amendment, which I'll stress again, to the US Constitution protects all speech, including speech that express ideas that are hateful or offensive. But the speech does not protect it. It's certain types of speech that are necessarily not protected by the First Amendment. Speech usually involving a serious expression of intent to commit an act of unlawful violence or to particular individual or groups of individual, vandalizing people's property, the use of certain symbols that might offend somebody that is normally used in a untactful way that is cause violence or could cause fight or consider fight words to a particular group. So let's define what bias incidents are. While TU policies do not prohibit such speech, we encourage members of our community to engage in respectful and civil dialogue. TU values us to have freedom of speech and expression here and open ideas and to exchange them amongst others of our views. But we do not protect, again, I'm going to stress this, harassment or expression of bias towards individuals that violate other university policies such as discrimination. Again, we all have to live here on this beautiful campus, and we need to find a way that we can do it together that is respectfully towards other people's beliefs, their religion, and their race or nationality. So this is just a graph to show you the different levels of what hate bias, hate speech, and just incidents that make someone feel uncomfortable. So we have here at TU called the TAT team, which I'm a part of as well. It was created in 2019. And this photo is just basically the students on campus that came together to protest. So again, like I stated in the previous slides, TU is a public institution, so we do allow students to peacefully and respectfully, tell their views and things like that and express themselves, but it's a certain way that you do it, and you will go through the TAT team right here. And it's, again, to educate and support students on activism on and off campus. And it coordinates appropriate levels of response for different events. And it's a way for like a liaison for like my office, TUPD, and different offices around the university and students to come together to, again, peacefully and tactfully demonstrate their views and beliefs. So again, like I said, an objective, we want to take a look at some of the trends that have been going around in the different universities to show you the impact that it has had on others. So I'm going to start this video. It's a short one for you all to view. Okay, it might start off with a brief commercial. So we're going to mute till the commercial's off. And then I will play it. Okay, here we go. Let me know if you guys can hear it.
I can't hear it.
You can't hear the audio?
Yeah, I can't hear it.
Okay, let me see something. Okay, I'm gonna turn my video off. Okay, let me know if you can hear it now.
For that Uber on Saturday night, police say the stabbing was completely unprovoked, and they may have information that suggests it could have been a hate crime.
Sean Urbanski, with a knife, stabbed Richard Wilbur Collins and killed him.
Police in Maryland say they have reason to believe 22-year-old murder suspect Sean Christopher Urbanski, a student at the University of Maryland, may have used race as a motivator in the murder of Richard Collins.
We're here to evaluate that as an ongoing concern with respect to whether or not this was a hate crime.
The FBI has been called in to help with the investigation, which centers around a racially charged Facebook page for the group Alt-Right Nation. Urbanski was a member.
It shows extreme bias against women, Latinos, members of the Jewish faith, and especially African Americans.
Saturday morning's murder shocked Maryland's campus as the community gathered for commencement weekend.
A Bowie State University student who lost his life in a senseless and unprovoked assault.
Richard Collins was preparing to receive his own diploma this week from nearby Bowie State University and serve his country. He completed his ROTC training and was commissioned last Thursday as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army.
Hate has no place in America. Hate has no place on a college campus.
Now, as of this morning, that alt-right Facebook page appears to have been taken down. Collins was set to have joined the intelligence division of the U.S. Army and set to walk across the stage here on this campus tomorrow to get his college degree. Gail?
Very sad, sad story. Thank you very much.
Okay. So yes, as you can see, that was very heartbreaking to view. And that just to show you of what a hate crime that transpired actually on one of our campuses. I see that we had a question in the chat. Someone stated that they were confused and they wanted to know the difference between intentionally making someone uncomfortable and a bias incident. So usually when you think of a bias incident, and we'll go more in detail as we further go into the slides, is more of something supposed to someone's protected classes, like I mentioned before, where someone intentionally hurting your feelings could be something like, oh, something so simple as, I don't like your shoes today, you know, whereas a bias incident, if someone can say something about your hair, the way that it looks in its natural state, if that makes more sense. Like I said, we'll go more in detail as we continue further in the slides. Let me know if you guys can hear me. You can hear me? We're good? Okay, so these are just some more trends that we see on campus involving hate crimes and bias incidents. Again, bias incidents are more revolving around protected classes that could eventually lead to something more severe like a hate crime, or could cause like eruption on campus with the environment. So we try to get to them first before it leads to something more severe. So these are some of the frequently asked questions when it's revolving around hate crimes, freedom of expression, and bias incidents. Again, like it says, why do we need to focus on these issues? Like I said, it's a campus culture in which, you know, the use of slurs could tend to escalate. And it could be viewed as harassment if it's intended towards a certain group or identity. I mean, even if a violence does not occur, the degrading language alone has a negative impact on a person or a certain group and can make them feel, you know, uncomfortable and unwanted, and that's not what we want on the campus. How do we determine whether it's a hate crime or a bias incident? Again, crime, you want to look towards crime. So something that is like vandalizing someone's property, like stated before, or doing something intentionally to harm someone's or a person against their, again, protected class. Bias indicators, this is for Chester in the group. It's like racial, ethnic, gender, or cultural difference between the perpetrator and a victim, comments, written statement, or gestures that are made, drawings, symbols, graffiti, you know, organized hate groups, again, against a person's protected class or group, specific group, are based on what they identify as.
So when you say hate or speech that's intended to offend, you just mean like insulting somebody, but in a way that an insult you could use toward anybody.
Right. So it has to be towards, like, again, their protected class, or because you identify with a certain group. That's how TU identifies in our policies.
Okay.
So if you belong to a certain group and someone attacks your group based on your identity to that group, then that can be considered a bias incident. Make sense?
So if somebody were to like go up to somebody and just like scream racial slurs at them that apply to them, that would be a bias incident?
Yes, but it could also borderline harassment as well.
Okay. Because I mean, I'm sure you're going to get to it, but I know there were questions in the air last semester about where the actual line with harassment is, and if harassment, as the university defines it, can apply to an entire group or just individuals or what. But
yeah, and then our harassment policy has changed as well, is more detailed. So I would like you guys to, you know, take a look at that as well on our website. So we have made changes to it too, for the definition of what harassment is as well. So so another question can be, can a hate crime be committed with nothing more than words? The use of bigoted and prejudiced language does not itself violate the hate crime definition. Again, this type of behavior is usually classified as a bias incident. However, hate crime laws apply when words are like in a threatening way. So that's why I say it's a borderline. You got to be careful with that. So similarly, hate crime laws apply when there's a biased motivation to it, when it's graffiti, damages involved, and could possibly destroy somebody's property. Do hate crime laws protect white people? This is another frequent asked question we get. Yes, hate crimes are colorblind. Racially motivated crimes targeting white people, although they're not very common, they still are protected under it. And many of hate crimes motivated by bias against a victim's religion, nationality, gender, or sexual orientation is directed at a white person. Do hate crime laws confer special rights on certain groups? Hate crime laws do not confer special rights on anyone. Rather, they're just there to protect individuals to conduct their everyday activities so that they can be on campus freely and have a right to an education as everyone else, to live in their homes, do their jobs, and without being subjected to violence due to what they believe in and how they feel. So again, we talked about how bias incidents, even though they don't arise to hate crime or actual violation of the discrimination policy per se, but they do impact a person. And this video here is going to show you how they may impact someone when they're not careful or when we don't address those issues. Oh my gosh, sorry.
Ji Young-an, and I am the sister of Dong Young-an. It was a long and difficult decision to sit and write this statement. Bringing up the feeling and memory is still something I avoid doing. It was a Sunday, and I think he was playing basketball with our church youth group, Korean church youth group kids. They went over to a local school court to play, and 5 or 8 white teenagers came over. He said he didn't know them. They asked, "Do you want to play 5-on-5?" And they agreed. They started playing basketball. It seemed like the white boys were purposely fouling, pushing them, shoveling, and that happens in basketball. So my brother was the oldest among the kids who went with him. He said, "Come on, let's play. Let's just play a game. Why are you guys pushing?" And they would keep on pushing, snicker about it together, So it came up to a point where it grew into an argument, and my brother said, "I had enough, we're gonna go." And that's when they started kind of, "Who the F do you think you are?" About 5 or 8 more kids came, so there were in total about 12 to 16 kids. He heard from the back, "There's that chink standing there alone. Let's jump on him now when he's alone." My brother turned around, and they circled him. And they're like, "Chink, go back to your country, and we're not even from China." After they spit on his face, they knocked him to the ground. 4 or 5, maybe even more kids started to step, stomp, and kick his head, face, and back. He was lying on the ground. He did not fight back. All the facial cheekbone was all just cracked into pieces. Nose bone fracture, and he lost sensation. There was a nerve damage, so he lost sensation on 4 of his upper teeth and whole bottom of the part. He doesn't have sensation till now, and it's been about a year since that happened. The police report was that they wrote it up as if it was a gang fight, that they were playing basketball, they got in an argument, it was a mutual fight. They thought it was a Chinese gang versus American white gang, and that offends me, just because of the description of how I look and how we are. The image of my brother falling on that concrete floor and people stepping and just kicking with shoes on his face, I couldn't get that image out of my head. What goes through one's mind when they kick and step on a living human being just covering his face and head to survive? What does one have to do to deserve all this? Getting into an argument playing basketball? I had a chance to read my victim impact statement at the court. I wanted to see the kids who did this to my brother. And after I read my statement, I said, just because someone speaks less English than you, just because someone looks a little different than you, and whether if it's the same, that doesn't give you any right to step, to kick or spit on someone's face. And the response I got from him was, I'm sorry I caused you such inconvenience. And but if you think I'm a racist, I'm not, because I don't treat people by their color. Hate crime, you know, it's not something explicit that you can see. You are just hitting or you are just punching someone due to your anger or your frustration. But the impact, the hurt that that person has, they carry on for life. And the people around that person who love him or her, they carry on the same pain. To see someone that you really love suffer and go through pain, that's not an easy thing to carry because it always stays in the back of your mind and it really hurts.
So as you all see that clearly that was a hate crime committed towards her brother, but the crime wasn't committed to her, but it still affected her in some form or fashion to witness it. And because it was against her brother due to his nationality. So when identifying a bias, we all want to first listen for the language, the slurs that may come up to show that this could be a possible bias incident. Look for graphics or images that send a message of hate. Also listen to people who feel like they may have been targeted against. Example of that was just listening to the young lady that was just speaking about how it affected her and her whole family to watch what her brother had to go through due to the fact of him being attacked because of his race. Look for patterns or behaviors and motives that people may have. Pay attention to like ongoing interpersonal conflicts on the campus. Stay informed of incidents that occur in and around the community. And I can't stress this more enough. Know who and where the resources are. And OIIE is one of the resources that you guys can come to, but there are others like the Counseling Center for people to talk to when they may have been encountered with the bias incident and don't know how to feel or express themselves. That's also a resource for you as well. How to manage those biases. Safety is key. That is the first thing we want to always stress when dealing with biases, is to make sure that you are safe. Also focus on the facts of the situation. Sometimes our feelings can get mingled in when we're trying to express that, you know, we're dealing with something that happened towards us because of someone was biased. So also make sure you always stick to the facts. Be clear that we at TU do not tolerate hate or bias. Listen to your surroundings. I want to also add observe. That's part of listening as well to what's going on. Acknowledge those feelings. If you've been encountered with a bias situation, please acknowledge them. If you're dealing with the fear, the anger, uncertainty, again, we have the Counseling Center here on campus that you can always go to for support and just to get some of those feelings out. Please don't leave them in. Please express them, tell someone. Provide support for people that you know have been impacted by a bias situation, or you know that they've been impacted in a negative way. Like, be that support person for them. Continue to develop trust and community, which goes back to support. Let's be each other's anchor here. We all have to live on this campus and interact with each other to some extent. So let's try to be each other's community. Continue our own education and self-work when we're dealing with our own biases. Again, we all have them. So this is nothing that it means hate when you think of biases, because we all have them as our way of a form of protection. But once you acknowledge them, you're able to move forward and grow as a person once you identify what your biases are. TU's response to hate crimes, always, and bias incidents, when it's dealing with hate crimes, obviously you want to go to TUPD. Always report to them. Again, OIIE is another resource when it comes to bias incidents. Even if you're not sure, please report them to our office, because we want to gauge the climate and the environment. We'd like to keep the numbers of what's going on so that we know. And so that we can be better prepared of what to do with incidents that's coming on and off campus. So to report, there goes TUPD's information for hate crimes, all bias incidents. This is our information right here. You can contact us online, call us in person. There goes our information. We are at the administration building, and you can always email us to file an actual complaint as well. Here's how our online reporting link looks like. You'll go and then you'll click this right here. And these, all of our kind people that work here at OIIE that you can always tend to if you have any questions, concerns, any feedback, or if you feel like there's something that we need to know. We're always open. Any questions in the chat for today's presentation?
I just want to say that I think that this has been a great presentation. I'm just glad that a lot of the ambiguity there has been like cleared up, and there's an effort to actually like explain it out in the public more. I appreciate that. Really, all I have to say is that I wish this was mandatory, because I see, like, compared to the other sessions, not that many people came to this one, but I just think it's something more people should know about. But yeah, I think you did good, and thank you for this.
Thank you, Chester. I really appreciate that. So thank you for your feedback as well. We'll try to figure out ways to get the word out more. We do have sessions like this in the beginning of the school year with incoming students. And then we also have sessions like this with HRL. And then we also have our DI training initiatives. Some of them are in the chat right now. Adrian, you can say hi. Who come to the different, classroom settings when they're invited to, express more things of what's going on around campus, to create dialogue when it's revolving around diversity, education, inclusion, things like that. I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat at the same time. So Chester says, is it also something student groups can come together for to build a dialogue? Yes, so that's where Adrian, and then it was Brian, his picture, he's a deputy director. They do those kind of things. And Adrian, if you want to explain more, you can. I will give you the floor, exactly how that works when it comes to student dialogue and getting them involved.
Yeah, so I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but just very briefly, this is a new initiative we're looking to launch. We do have dialogue at TU, but in the past, it has been primarily offered for faculty, staff, and graduate students. but we realized through often requests from a lot of our student leaders in the undergraduate level that there is a lot of intrigue around providing that, for our undergrad students. And so we're going to be looking throughout this semester to do a very soft launch to provide that. And this is going to be done with a prioritization of student org leaders and student leaders across the campus. And so if you are interested on that, be on the lookout for an email. We'll be sending that information to you at some point throughout the semester. And there you'll get a chance to register if that is something that you're interested in. We do have a cap limit on how many people we can do per session, but there will be multiple sessions that will be offered throughout the semester.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. That's definitely something YDSA is going to be interested in. What office is doing this program again?
So the dialogue at TU is still all under the Office of Inclusion and Institutional Equity. And so if you did want to get in touch with us, I can put my email here in the chat, but you could also reach out to Andrea or Angela, and they could also connect you all with the right people as well.
Okay, thank you. Because this is just something in general we wanted to start building a dialogue about. So, maybe we could work something out and we can collaborate and have something open to just general students. Because I know last semester we've had events like that, and it had a pretty good, nice reception.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll reach out to you. Okay.
Cool.
Nice meeting you, man.
And thanks, Andrea, for that. I'm going to hop onto another Zoom call, but thank you all again for your time. Really appreciate that.
No worries. Thank you again, Adrian. But I left all our information up here real quick for you all for a couple more minutes. Any more questions? If not, thank you all for your time and joining us today.
Thank you.
You all. Thank you. You all been great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.